Today we will be discussing automation in healthcare. My name is Jacob, and I am joined by Bryce, Jackie, and Jack. As a quick overview, first we will provide an introduction, followed by discussing medical AI, then on to robotics, and finally a quick conclusion. The climate for healthcare organizations is a challenging one, with healthcare costs expected to rise by 6.5% over the next year. Between tighter compliance regulations, increased competition, and tighter budgets, organizations have to do everything possible to reduce costs and streamline healthcare delivery processes. Healthcare automation is one of the key strategies to accomplish this. Examples include accelerated diagnoses, automated scheduling, and advanced prosthetics. Automation can reduce staffing costs, improve compliance, and significantly speed up the billing and payment cycle, thus improving revenue flow and efficiency. By the year 2026, AI automation in healthcare is predicted to save organizations up to $150 billion annually. And now I'll pass it off to Jack, who will be discussing medical AI.
Hey, okay, so medical AI, thank you, Jacob. Medical AI, we're going to start just by looking at the current state of AI in healthcare. So here's an interesting thing is artificial intelligence, which is what we know AI to stand for usually, has been deemed as augmented intelligence in healthcare because there's been this growth in the field. So it used to be that there was a lot more scare about AI taking over jobs in healthcare. And this has become less of the case. And so we see this change in nomenclature as well in the healthcare profession. So as the healthcare professional uses this augmented intelligence, there's three different categories that they can fall into as they're working with these software pieces now that are supposed to help their profession. So the first one is that they are a user. This is pretty straightforward. They need to be able to use these different machine learning algorithms proficiently, and so there's some training that has been factored into the technical side of what a healthcare professional learns. Also, the healthcare professional has to act as an analyst. They can't just accept these results blindly, but they need to interpret and gain insight from whatever results come out of these algorithms. The third role is the reviewer. Healthcare professionals, they need to have quality tools in their profession and in their analysis, and part of that is giving feedback to those that are building these technical tools, whether that's successes that they found or if there's any shortcomings in the software. So another piece that has shown the development of AI in healthcare and how it's maturing is AMA, the American Medical Association, has actually formed a document that states best practices for using AI in healthcare. These are just a few of them that seem particularly relevant for what we're talking about here today. The first one is model transparency. We want to remove the commonly termed black box of the machine learning algorithm and be able to poke around and see what it is we're really doing inside of these tools. The next one is real-world data validation. A lot of times we'll have training data or even validation data that's sort of this gold standard. It's pampered, it's prepped data, and we want to come away from that a little bit in the healthcare world because we're treating actual patients with all of this. So we want the models to be less about having high percentages, which is still a focus, but really that those high percentages are still relevant for the everyday patient in what's called in the wild. We also want a user-centered design. This just prevents errors when we have a software design that is easy to use and lends itself to non-technical people using it. It also can increase efficiency, which again adds financial value actually to the practice, and helps the practitioner feel more comfortable with the tool they're using. And this last one is no surprise, data privacy and integrity. The health sector is known for having high standards for their data and how it gets moved around and the security of it, who sees it, how it's used. We see this in HIPAA laws and other things of the sort. The other piece here with AI that's a concern ethically is the bias. AI is machine learning algorithms by nature are biased. This is part of how they operate actually. But there's a few factors that we'll look at here that particularly raise some ethical questions. So the first thing we're going to do is just look at what groups are affected. The three groups that Chen and some others, you can look at the resources at the end of these slides for more information, but the three groups that are affected, kind of the dividing lines, are based on age, race, and socioeconomic status. The ways that these factor in is through clinical notes even. Medical AI software, sometimes they'll use what's called unstructured data, which clinical notes would fall into this category. Think like natural language processing. And so this algorithm is trying to glean information from human written notes, which may already have bias factored into them, or even just human error. The next part is inadequate representation of a certain demographic. So think maybe if you have just a very small population of a certain demographic, if the model is trained with mass amounts of other groups' data, and only a small portion of the data comes from this other group, the model just won't have as accurate of results. This leads to two things: skewed correlation and forgetfulness. Skewed correlation, if everyone over 85 who's been used as training data had emphysema, and let's say there's only a handful of them, the next time a patient comes in who's 85, the model might say they have emphysema, even if they don't, just because it's basing this prediction on variables, and if it's already associated to things that shouldn't be, this is where we can get skewed correlation. Also, forgetfulness. If you only have, let's say, 1% of your data comes from a certain ethnic group that's a minority, and the rest comes from some majority ethnic group, then when you train with the majority group, the model will actually forget what it learned about that minority group, and will have much less effective predictions or diagnoses come out of it for that minority group. I'm going to hand it off now to Jackie for diagnosis.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about diagnosis with AI. So what does it look like? In an ideal scenario, a patient would be able to provide their symptoms and past medical history and receive an accurate diagnosis and treatment plan. So with AI, hopefully it would make the process of getting a diagnosis and receiving treatment faster, cheaper, and safer. There are many different areas of research in the field of diagnostics and detection. So some of these examples in the real world are IBM Watson's oncology product. It's supposed to provide diagnoses and treatment plans for different types of cancers. Next, Google and DeepMind, they've created an app called Streams, which serves as an assistant to healthcare professionals, and its purpose is to speed up the process of detection. Since one of the popular areas for research are in breast cancer, a study was done on some of the current clinically available mammogram detection models, and their accuracies ranged from 69% to 98%. So there's still a lot of variance depending on which data they use for training and testing. So next, while there are many upsides to detection and diagnosis with AI, there's also many ethical challenges that involve many stakeholders, some of which are patients, medical professionals, governments, large tech companies, and more. So the first ethical issue is the black box problem, which Bryce touched upon earlier. It would be unethical to expect a patient to just blindly accept a diagnosis produced by a machine learning model. So the reasoning behind the diagnosis should be able to be clearly explained and understood by the patient. However, it's not an easy task because there are fields of research dedicated specifically to the focus of explainable AI. And going back to the multiple stakeholders involved, um, for example, large tech companies don't want to be as transparent with their products because it could compromise the product and IP to other competitors, while patients want that transparency. So the next challenge is acquisition of data and handling and ownership. So in order to train these machine learning models, it requires massive amounts of data. So some of the examples of the movement of data in recent times is in 2016, IBM was given exclusive rights to anonymous health data of 61 million Italian citizens without their individual consent by the Italian government. So there's a lot of questions about who actually gets to own the data. Do the patients get to own the data, or do companies get to own the data, and so forth, and how that data should be used in a secure way. Lastly, responsibility. So there's currently no clear regulator, trial procedures, or kind of rules for accountability for the field of medical AI. So for an example of this is if a doctor misdiagnoses a patient with the use of an AI model, it's still unclear who's actually responsible for that. So looking forward, there's still a lot of problems that need to be resolved, not just ethical, but social, legal, and technical. And being able to successfully implement AI for detection and diagnostics will require the collaboration of all the stakeholders involved. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jack, who's going to go over robotics.
Thank you, Jackie. Here I'm going to talk about surgical robots. These robots are used to perform and help with operations on humans. Some people may not trust technology and thus don't trust these robots. But the fact of the matter is that robots are necessary for some types of surgeries, as well as they help out in certain areas that might be difficult to access, and precision that sometimes humans can't get with certain cuts and other types of operations. Here we list the surgical robots' pros and cons. There are many things that robots can do that humans cannot, such as I mentioned earlier, precise cuts and operating in areas that really can't be accessed by humans, like inner organs. They can help assist real doctors. They don't have to do the entire surgery all by themselves. They can just be a tool used by a doctor in order to perform and finish a surgery. They might act as permanent attachments or attachments that perform surgery over a longer period of time. Doctors normally only have a certain set time where you can visit them and talk with them about the issues, or they can operate on you. Surgical robots, if they are attachments, can just keep on going. Some cons are they make people feel uneasy. People don't trust robots quite as much as they would a human operating on them. Another issue is they just might have a technical mishap where they injure the person who is being treated on. That would cause ethical dilemma. Technology also ages. We don't know about updates and such that might break these robots that are used in surgery, and that could also cause harm to other humans. Here we have some ethics about robots. The robots for surgery mostly follow the code of ethics due to the fact that they are built and made to help humans through surgery. Some robots may malfunction, causing harm to the users and thus might even kill them. But that is an ethical issue that may or may not happen. Another issue that might arise is the person who is using the robots to work on a human. It could be that they have unethical issues that they want to hurt someone or even frame someone for doing something and may use robots as a means to do it. On top of robots, prosthetics are used a lot in healthcare, namely robotic prosthetics are being used a lot more. They help with people who have lost limbs and need replacements. They give back the feeling of moving a hand and the function of moving a hand. It's something that can help people throughout their daily life and improve overall enjoyment of things. It can malfunction and hurt someone sometimes, but overall, these prosthetics are a huge leap forward for humanity and will help out people in the future. A namely big jump for prosthetics is electric skin. It's being used to help give back feeling to people who have lost limbs. It stretches over a prosthetic and can help monitor the vitals of the user. This not only helps them gain feeling back, but also makes sure that they are safe and not in any immediate danger. One issue with electronic skin is that it is hard to make, as you have to make sure it's flexible enough to move around, but not strenuous enough to tear off the actual skin of a human. Some pros and cons of aesthetics are that it regains limbs, you regain feeling, and it improves your general life. Overall, these are really great things that it does. It makes it so that you don't have to rely on others when picking up packages or bending over to grab something you dropped. And it overall, like I said, improves the life of people who need prosthetics. Some cons are that an issue might arise with a robotic prosthetic that could turn deadly to the user if the limb decides to turn in ways that it's not supposed to and jabbing into the user, or maybe it's causing pain receptors which shouldn't be active to be active. Technology also might improve, meaning that in the future there might be a better model that can't be applied to people who have already put robotic prosthetics on that are being used right now, meaning that there might not be the option to upgrade and improve your prosthetics. There might be some unknown side effects, some code that was not supposed to run starts running. Maybe the electronic skin actually does tear off some of your actual skin over time. Someone didn't foresee that. There are many ethical issues when it comes to prosthetics, but for the most part, robotic prosthetics are made to help people, which means that they are ethical. Though issues that could arise that would be ethically gray are what information might be stored in these robotic prosthetics and sent out to others, who is collecting this information and for what uses. Also, how are robotic prosthetics being sold? Could they be a monopoly? are people selling them on the black market? Would this cause malfunctions for the person selling it? Overall, though, even with these gray areas being made for a good purpose, I personally believe that robotic prosthetics are very ethical. I will now pass it off to Jacob for the conclusion.
Okay, so in order to conclude, we will go over the ethics once again of each subtopic. Automation is ethical. It is a tool, and as a tool, it cannot be morally ambiguous. Just as a knife isn't morally ambiguous, even if it can be used for unethical means. When automation and AI is first brought into an office space, employees might be inclined to worry about their role and responsibilities. They don't know if their job will change, if their contribution will diminish, if they and their colleagues will still have job security. The unclear nature and initial unrest of introducing automation can quickly cause a panic-induced dip in morale. Another consideration in the is automation ethical question is the fear that automation will mean fewer jobs are available. After all, automation is getting more and more capable across more and more disciplines. As automation becomes more proficient, people worry about more jobs being taken over. It's argued for this reason that automation causes harm to both people and society. Automation may well reduce the human workers to complete mundane admin tasks, but it doesn't reduce the need for human workers that can complete higher value tasks, the human touch and service, and make critical decisions. And at that, we thank you all for watching, and here's a bibliography to glance at.